Hello and welcome to the Real Gary Tussey Podcast, where we talk about anything and everything that could ever amount to anything or everything to anybody and everybody who ever intends to amount to something. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome to this edition of Real Gary Tussey Podcast. I am real today, like every day. On this podcast, I take a moment in the very beginning, the very opening of our podcast, every day that we produce this, to be thankful to those people who have helped to make Gary Tussey so real. And on Thursday and Friday, when we're recording today, we have live feed Facebook in the studio when we're recording these podcasts. It's all about music, baby, on Thursday and Friday. So a special shout out to those who have helped me in the music and with the music makers in Berea, Kentucky, Danny, and Randall over there. They're tremendous, not only musicians, but they do repair work they make musical instruments that otherwise might be a kindling pile and turn it back into a musical instrument. They do repairs and they're great. Also, if you're listening or watching and you need an instrument appraised, or would like to know if your great aunt, when you cleaned her attic out, if she left you a treasure or a piece of because you'd be amazed what may look like not that valuable of an instrument. It's really a treasure. The gentleman down at Music Makers in Berea, down in Old Town, Randall and Danny, awesome guys, can really, and they also offer lessons there and have a tremendous recording studio. And to be quite honest with you, those gentlemen were using Cubase. We were using a different software for recording audio that was not working, and I'm not going to tell you the name of it. There's no point in that. But Danny and Randall were using Cubase, and I watched them use that some and watched them describe it. And so we decided to go with Cubase, and we have not regretted that. So this podcast is being recorded on Cubase 9.5, which I do. I walk our live audience through that every day, because it's part of our ritual to make sure that since I'm my own producer, that I save all of these programs correctly so we don't lose them. Thursday is the day we are recording this podcast on a Thursday, and Thursday and Friday is dedicated to musica, as my Latino friends say, and music for those of us north of what used to be a border. And we just have some great I have great friends who are involved in music, and I've been involved in music. There's not been a moment that I don't recall music in my life, hearing it first, and then now I'm a player of music. So we're going to talk about today, and this is surprising to me as to what's not on this list. We are talking about the 50 most iconic songs of all time. So let me read you this. And I Google. I'm a Google master. You may be a Google master. It's sad to me that people are not Google master. I see so many people, they ask questions, and oftentimes my first response is Google it, especially when it comes to our kids. My parents used to say, go to the encyclopedia. Now I know why, because it's a great resource for information, and you can find it there. But now Google it. I mean, what a master stroke of information. So I Googled it. Now, this is according to science, and science and music do not always mingle. And anybody who's a music fan knows this. And what amazes, and I'm just jumping right into how I feel about this list as I read it. It is amazing to me what is not on this list. And when I read this list, I believe it's going to be amazing to you what is not on this list. The top the top 50 most iconic songs of all time. So let me read this before I get into this. Science has the definitive word on quite a lot of things, but given that it's so open to interpretation and taste, music is certainly not one of them. Despite that, a computer scientist in the University of London has sought to apply a formula to what determines the greatest songs of all times, and he's come up with a definitive list of top 50. So this is scientific. And that being that this is scientific, it means also that the author of this may never listen to music ever. So keep that in mind, because it is amazing to me what is not on this list this morning. According to the Daily Mail, Dr. Mick Gearson examined a whole host of songs that appeared in greatest songs of all times list in newspapers, on music stations like VH1, and I noticed that they don't have CMT listed on here. So wait till you see how slanted this song list is. VH1 and in iconic music publications such as Q and NME and Rolling Stone. Which does country music, and I like all music, I can bring this up, but this seems one-sided to me. Does country music have a magazine? Can anybody weigh in on that? Is there a publication that is because Rolling Stone is supposed to cover all genres, but it doesn't. VH1 definitely does not cover all genres. I'm not familiar with Q or NME, which I will be after this episode because my genius is showing. This is so informative. I am so informative this morning that I don't even know what I'm talking about. I'm teasing. I know what I'm talking about. I just don't understand. I just don't recognize this resource. Okay. Commissioned by car manufacturer Fiat, he wanted to identify a song that they could use to promote the Fiat 500. He also used analytical software in an attempt to put a finger on what exactly made those tunes iconic. That involved taking into account factors such as beats per minute. Here you go. For songwriters, this is a wealth of information. They took into account factors such as beats per minute, chord variety, lyrical content, and timbral variety, and sonic variance before arriving at the list you see below. We're certainly not going to argue with number one, or Real Gary Tussey audience. Are we? Okay, are you ready for this? I hope you've had a little bit of coffee and you're comfortable right now, okay? All right, number one. And we're going to read down here. I hope to get through 25, and then for the next podcast, we'll get through the other 25. So here we go. And I know you're going to have comment on this because, again, what amazes me on this list is not what's on it, it's what's not on it. It's like, really? Are you kidding me? All right. The top 50 most iconic songs of all time. Number one, Smells Like Teen Spirit. Smells Like Teen Spirit, Nirvana. Number two, Imagine, John Lennon. Number three, One, U2. Number four, Billie Jean, Michael Jackson. Number five, Bohemian Rhapsody, Queen. Hey Jude, the Beatles. Number seven, Like a Rolling Stone, Bob Dylan. Number eight, I Can't Get No Satisfaction, Rolling Stones. Number 9, God Save the Queen, Sex Pistols. Number 10, Sweet Child O' Mine, Guns N' Roses. Number 11, London Calling, The Clash. Number 12, Waterloo, The Kinks. Number 13, Hotel California, The Eagles. Number 14, Your Song, Elton John. Number 15, Stairway to Heaven, Led Zeppelin. Number 16, The Twist, Chubby Checker. Number 17, Live Forever, Oasis. Number 18, I Will Always Love You, Whitney Houston. Man, we got some stuff to talk about when I'm done reading here. Number 19, Life on Mars, David Bowie. Number 20, Heartbreak Hotel, Elvis Presley. Number 21, Over the Rainbow, Judy Garland. 22, What's Going On, Marvin Gaye. Number 23, Born to Run, Bruce Springsteen. And number 24, Be My Baby, the Ronettes. Number 25, and although you're sitting there possibly in utter disbelief, number 25, Radiohead's song Creep. Okay. It's a very interesting list to me. And how many recognize what's not on this list? Did we list one? I mean, out of 25, and we're going to list the other 25 on the next podcast that we produce. But not one country music song on here. Beat, no beat. Can anybody, especially my live friends right now, and those of you on the podcast, maybe you want to email realgarytussey@gmail.com and respond to this. Most iconic songs of all time, and I suppose if this was generated by a computer software program, you know what? This is telling me computer software programs are no better than the people who write the code. Because not one, you're telling me that the top 50 most iconic songs of all time, even in the first 25, there's not one country music song. There is not one George Jones song. There is not one of the greatest, possibly the greatest songwriter of all time, Hank Williams. And some of these we've never even heard of. Computers, anyway, don't get me started. Or wait, I already am started. So again, what really jolts me about this top 50 most iconic songs of all time is what's not on the list. Not one Hank Williams song. Not one, you know what else is not on here? Is not Mozart a song? And you're talking about beat, and you're talking about, what was the other things that was the criteria? You're talking about beats per minute, chord variety, lyrical content, sonic variants, and there's not one Mozart piece on here, not one Bach piece. You got to be kidding me. So, good for us. We have programs like Real Gary Tussey that shed the light on, come on, man, are you for real? That's going to be a new segment on Real Gary Tussey. It's going to be called, Are You For Real? You know, have you heard of the program that's on NPR? And I remember hearing this years ago. It's called All Things Considered. And every time I hear the title of that program, every time I hear it, I think, that's not All Things Considered. You know why? They didn't ask me. And odds are, most likely, they didn't ask you. So the program, All Things Considered, is not. I doubt they even came to your hometown. My guess is they flew over your hometown to go from New York to L.A. to consider all things. Don't get me started. I'm already started. What are you going to do? No sugar either. I didn't get a sugar fix to get this going this morning. You're listening to Real Gary Tussey Podcast. Thanks for hanging with us. All of our live crew, our live posse that's with us and thank you for nominating Real Gary Tussey as the most interesting man on the live Facebook feed from the 5 a.m. hour. I'm very honored and privileged and excited and thrilled and having so much fun. I can hardly stand myself. I'm having so much fun, and I want to be contagious with that and help you to have fun also. So on the next podcast, don't mix the next podcast, we're going to list the next 25 most iconic songs, in human history. We're encouraging you on this podcast every time you hear it to live and let live, to be free and set other people free, and apply a high energy pursuit for happiness. Tussey out.